You're watching Forsaken Joe. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Enjoy the story. Let's begin. I set the plates down, trying to ignore the tension in the air. It had been a quiet dinner. Allison pushed her food around, her eyes far away. I noticed the weight of her silence, but I didn't say anything. Not at first. Finally, she dropped the bomb. I don't think we're right for each other anymore. I didn't flinch. I didn't blink. I just set the fork down and looked at her. Is there someone else? She froze. For a moment, I saw something in her eyes. Panic, maybe guilt. But then it was gone, quickly buried under a mask of defiance. No, she said, a little too fast. It's not like that? I didn't react. Instead, I stood up and started gathering the plates. She didn't say anything at first. I could feel her staring at me, waiting for some sort of emotional eruption, for me to shout, to fight, to beg her to stay. But I didn't. I just rinsed the plates and loaded the dishwasher. My hands worked with a quiet efficiency. The sound of running water filled the silence. You're not even going to say anything? Her voice was sharp now, but still, I didn't look at her. I wasn't mad. I wasn't sad. I just felt nothing. Nothing to say, I said, my voice flat. You've already made up your mind. She stood there for a long time, watching me, and for the first time in a long time, I saw a crack in her. Something shaky, something unsure. I didn't care. I just kept cleaning up. The silence between us stretched out, and I could almost hear her questioning herself. I didn't feel sorry for her. I wasn't angry. I wasn't anything. I was just done. I finished cleaning up the kitchen, half expecting her to say something else, maybe apologize or try to explain. But she didn't. She just stood there, watching me like she was trying to figure out who I was. By the time I finished drying my hands, she was sitting on the couch, staring at the TV, but not really watching it. The silence between us felt heavy, but I didn't mind. I had nothing left to say, nothing at all. I stepped around her and headed down the hallway. I wasn't sure where I was going, but I ended up in the guest room. I pulled the blanket off the bed, tossed it aside. I didn't want to sleep in there, not tonight, not with her next door. But it was fine. I was fine. I was done. It wasn't like this was some new realization. I'd known for months, probably years, that something was off. I just kept pretending I didn't notice. I thought about how she'd started staying late at work, how her phone had been locked, face down every time she set it on the counter, how she'd shut down any conversation that got too close to the real issue, all that little stuff that added up day by day. She'd been pulling away for a long time, and I'd let it happen. Maybe I was already checked out, but I refused to admit it to myself. The first time we met, God, I remember that, like it was yesterday. She was funny, sharp. There was this spark in her eyes, something unguarded. We'd stayed up all night talking, laughing about stupid shit, planning a future that felt like it might actually be possible. I didn't even think about how young we were back then, or how reckless it all seemed. I just knew I wanted her, and she wanted me. Simple. Now, there was nothing simple about us anymore. I couldn't even remember the last time we laughed like that. I stretched out on the guest bed, staring at the ceiling. The sound of her TV hummed in the background, a low, almost forgotten noise. It was like we were both living in a house we didn't care about anymore. She'd made her decision tonight. She'd told me she didn't think we were right for each other, but she didn't have to say it. I'd seen it coming. I'd felt it for so long, I just didn't want to face it. Now that it was out in the open, I realized that I'd already checked out too. She hadn't even left yet, and I already felt lighter. The weird thing, I wasn't sad, not like I thought I would be. I sat up and grabbed my phone off the nightstand. I didn't feel like sleeping yet. I opened a few texts from my buddies. They were making plans for the weekend. A part of me felt like I should be doing something more dramatic right now. Maybe going through our wedding photos or rereading some old texts to get the closure I thought I needed. But instead, I scrolled mindlessly through my messages. The thought crossed my mind. Maybe she had already left emotionally long before tonight. Maybe I had too. It was like I'd been holding on to a ghost, a version of her that didn't exist anymore. Maybe I was only just now realizing I didn't have to hold on to it anymore. I set the phone down and closed my eyes. For the first time in a long time, I felt something close to relief. Maybe it was because I didn't have to try anymore. Maybe it was because I didn't have to keep pretending everything was fine when I knew it wasn't. I wasn't mourning the end of my marriage. I was starting to feel free. The morning light filtered in through the blinds, and I woke up before my alarm, like I always did. For a second, I thought about going back to sleep, but then I remembered. Last night wasn't a dream. Allison's words were still hanging in the air, thick and suffocating. She wasn't coming back, and neither was I. I got out of bed and walked into the bedroom. She was still asleep, but I wasn't waiting for her to wake up. I wasn't waiting for anything. I grabbed the suitcase from the closet, the one we'd used for weekend trips and vacations. I pulled it out slowly, methodically, setting it down at the foot of the bed. I didn't rush. There was no point. I opened the suitcase and started with the drawers. Her clothes were neatly folded, but I took my time folding them again. Neatly, precisely. I wasn't angry, I wasn't upset, I was just done. She'd already checked out, and I had no interest in begging her to stay. By the time she stirred, I'd already packed half her things. The soft rustling of the sheets caught my attention, and I glanced over. She was watching me, eyes wide, a little confused, a little wary. "What are you doing?" she asked, voice thick with sleep. I kept folding. "Packing your stuff." She sat up, pulling the covers around her. "Jake, wait. Can we talk about this? We need to talk more before we make any decisions." Her tone was still shaky, like she was trying to regain control of the situation. But there was an edge to it now, a false confidence, a desperation she couldn't hide. I didn't look at her. I just folded another shirt and placed it in the suitcase. "There's nothing more to talk about. You already made your decision." Her voice hardened, a little defensive. "You don't even care, do you? Just like that, you're done?" I glanced at her, finally meeting her eyes. "I'm not fighting for someone who's already gone, Allison." She opened her mouth to say something, but nothing came out. Her face flushed, her hands twisted the sheets in her lap. I could see her scrambling for something, anything, to regain some semblance of control, but I wasn't giving her that. I closed the suitcase with a soft click and pushed it aside, then grabbed my toiletries bag and started packing that too. The silence stretched, but I wasn't in a hurry. "I'm sleeping in the guest room," I said, my voice flat. "You've got time to finish up here." Her gaze flickered between the suitcase and me. "Jake, wait, we can't just—" "Yeah, we can," I said, cutting her off. I wasn't angry, I wasn't emotional, I was just tired. "You already decided. I'm not going to fight you on it. I'll be in the guest room." I stepped toward the door, but before I could leave, she spoke again, her voice faltering, unsure. "You can't just pack my things and pretend like this is over." I didn't look back. "It is over. I'm done." I left the room, closing the door behind me, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was the one in control. I wasn't angry, I wasn't upset, but I was done, completely done. Allison's false confidence, her frantic attempts to regain control, none of it mattered anymore. She'd already made her choice, and so had I. Hours later, I sat at the kitchen table, drinking coffee and scrolling through my phone. The quiet of the house was thick, and I barely noticed the time pass. It didn't feel like anything was missing. I heard the soft creak of the door opening, and I didn't look up. The sound of footsteps moved through the hallway, hesitant but deliberate. I knew what was coming before it even happened. She was standing in the doorway, suitcase in hand. Her eyes searched me like she was looking for some sign of regret, something that would make her feel like this wasn't really happening. She didn't find it. Allison opened her mouth, but she hesitated before she spoke, clearly trying to control the frustration in her voice. "Is that it, Jake? Is that all you've got to say?" I finally looked up at her. My eyes were steady, detached. I didn't feel anger or sadness, just an odd sense of quiet acceptance. "Take care," I said, as calmly as if I were bidding goodbye to a colleague after a long day. She stood there for a moment, searching my face for something, anything, to prove that this was a mistake, but there was nothing. No pleading, no regrets. Just silence. "I'm not going to make this harder than it has to be," I added, my voice still flat. She swallowed, her lips trembling slightly. "Jake, I thought you'd—" I shook my head. "You made your choice. I'm not going to change your mind." She bit her lip, then looked down at her suitcase, maybe trying to decide whether to say something else, to keep this going. But it was already over. I wasn't going to give her anything more. She could walk out the door, and I wouldn't stop her. The seconds stretched, heavy with something she couldn't name. Finally, she glanced back at me, her eyes searching, one last time, for some sort of reaction. Maybe hoping for desperation, regret, anything that could give her the illusion of control. But I didn't give her that. Without a word, she turned and walked toward the door. The sound of her footsteps on the hardwood floor was the only thing that broke the silence. She reached the front door, hesitated once more, and then, with a deep breath, opened it. She glanced back one last time, her eyes searching, hoping for a spark. But I didn't move. I didn't reach for her. I didn't chase her. I just watched as she walked out the door, her figure fading into the distance. I didn't feel anything. I didn't feel loss, regret, or even relief. I just felt the same quiet, the same peace. The door clicked shut behind her, and the house was empty. For the first time in years, it felt like it was mine again. The days after Allison left felt like a strange kind of freedom. At first, I didn't know what to do with all the extra space, both in the house and in my mind, but it didn't take long to figure it out. I threw myself into work, focusing on the grind, and it felt good. The rhythm of it, the deadlines, the meetings, the constant movement kept me busy. But it was more than that. It kept me present. I wasn't thinking about what was missing or what had fallen apart. I was too focused on what I was building now. I started going to the gym more regularly. I'd fallen out of the habit years ago, but it felt right to get back into it. It wasn't about looking good or impressing anyone. It was about reclaiming a part of myself that had been lost to routine, to her, to us. The first few workouts were rough, but slowly it became something I looked forward to, something just for me. And then there were the weekends. I finally started reconnecting with my friends, the ones I'd lost touch with over the years, the ones I had pushed away to focus on a marriage that was already over. I didn't realize how much I'd missed them until I was hanging out with them again, laughing, not a care in the world. They didn't ask me about Allison, and I didn't offer an explanation. I didn't have to. We picked up right where we left off. No one brought up the divorce. It wasn't even the point anymore. I started feeling alive again. It had been so long since I'd felt this free. Meanwhile, Allison seemed to be watching from the sidelines, though I didn't care enough to check. I didn't need to. I knew she was paying attention to my life through social media. There were the occasional comments on my posts, carefully worded, trying to seem casual, as if she was just another person in the crowd. But I saw through it. I wasn't looking for a reaction from her. I wasn't hoping she'd come back or regret what she did. I didn't care about her feelings anymore, not the way I used to. I was moving forward and well, I didn't know exactly what she was doing, but I could guess. It was clear from her silence that she was stuck in some kind of loop, maybe scrolling through my life and trying to figure out where things went wrong. I didn't need to see her posts or hear about how she was doing fine to know the truth. She wasn't fine. I kept doing what I was doing, working, hitting the gym, making plans with my friends, building the life I should have been building all along. The more I moved forward, the clearer it became. She wasn't. She was trapped in the regret of her decision, and I wasn't stuck with her anymore. I started to feel like I could breathe again, like the weight had been lifted. And it wasn't even the weight of her leaving. It was the weight of me finally letting go, of realizing that this wasn't just her story to tell. It was mine too, and it felt good. It was a few weeks after Allison left when I ran into her again. I was at some party my buddy had thrown, one of those casual Saturday night things with too much beer and people I barely knew. I wasn't expecting to see her, and I wasn't looking for her either. But there she was, standing near the kitchen with a drink in her hand, talking to a group of people like she didn't have a care in the world. When her eyes met mine across the room, I could see the second she recognized me. She froze for a split second, then straightened up, like she was trying to make sure everything looked fine, like she hadn't just walked away from me months ago. She made her way over, her smile wide, almost too wide. "Jake! Hey, it's good to see you." I gave her a short nod, nothing more. "Yeah, you too." Her smile faltered, but she quickly recovered. She was trying to play it off, trying to act like we were just old friends, but I could tell she was nervous. Her eyes darted around the room like she was looking for an escape, but she didn't find one. She was stuck with me, and she knew it. "Are you enjoying the party?" she asked, her voice a little too light, like she was trying to fill the space with small talk. I shrugged, leaning against the counter with my drink. "It's fine. Nothing special." She didn't seem to know how to handle my indifference. She laughed, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Yeah, same here. You know how these things are. Lots of noise, but not much else." I didn't answer. I just took another sip of my beer, watching her fidget with her glass. She was still looking for something, anything, to make this conversation feel normal. But it wasn't normal. It couldn't be. She pressed on, her voice a little more uncertain now. "So, How have you been? Really, how are things? She was watching me intently now, like she was trying to gauge whether I still had feelings for her, if I was still pining for her the way I used to. I set my glass down on the counter and looked at her for a moment. Good, I've been good, staying busy. She nodded, but her gaze flickered nervously, almost like she was waiting for me to soften, to slip up and show a crack in the wall I'd put up. She didn't get that. I wasn't here for her. I wasn't going to engage in whatever game she was trying to play. She forced another smile, but it was weaker this time, more forced. That's great, Jake. Really. She took a step back, then took a long drink from her glass like she was trying to compose herself. I'm glad to hear it. There was a long pause, and I just watched her. She was shifting from foot to foot, unsure of what to do with herself, now that I wasn't playing along with whatever version of this conversation she had in her head. You doing okay? She asked, a little quieter now, almost like she was trying to find a way back in. I'm fine, I said, my voice flat. How about you? For a moment she hesitated, and I could see the shift in her expression. That fake smile slipped, and I caught a flash of something else in her eyes. Regret. Uncertainty. The realization that I wasn't the same guy anymore. The guy who used to chase her, beg for her attention. She let out a quiet breath and shook her head, as if trying to shake off whatever she was feeling. Yeah, I'm good, really. But she wasn't. I could see that now. She was trying to convince herself more than she was trying to convince me. Well, she said, stepping back a little, it was nice talking to you. I nodded, not offering anything more. No apology, no softness. Yeah, you too. She lingered for a second, almost as if she was waiting for me to say something else, but I didn't. I didn't need to. She didn't need me to either. With a half-hearted wave, she turned and disappeared into the crowd, the sound of her footsteps fading as I returned to my drink. I didn't feel anything, not really. Not the anger, not the heartbreak. I just felt empty in a way, but in a way that wasn't painful, just clear. Like I was watching her from a distance, realizing how far removed I had become from the person who once cared so much. She wasn't the one who had walked away. I had. And she was just now starting to see it. A few days after the party, I found myself walking through the aisles of the grocery store, picking up the usual stuff. Eggs, coffee, bread, nothing special. I was focused on getting in and out quickly, but then I turned a corner and almost ran into her. Allison. She was standing in front of the produce, staring at a pile of oranges like she was trying to pick the right one, but I could tell she wasn't really looking at them. She was looking at me. I froze for a second, but she wasn't exactly surprised. She looked up, meeting my eyes, and there was that same half smile she'd been wearing the last time we spoke. It was more guarded this time, less confident. I could tell something was different about her. She wasn't the same woman who had walked out of the house like she had the world at her feet. This version of Allison seemed smaller somehow, unsure. Jake, she said, her voice soft, almost hesitant. Hey, it's good to see you. I nodded, keeping my expression neutral. Yeah, you too. She didn't move, didn't step away, like she was trying to close the distance between us without saying it outright. She glanced down at my cart for a moment, then back up at me, her gaze scanning my face, my body, like she was searching for something. Maybe she thought she'd find the same guy, the one who'd fall apart if he saw her again, the one who still cared. You look good, she said finally. I didn't know how to respond to that, so I didn't. I just gave her a brief nod. Thanks. She was still watching me, though. Her eyes lingered on me, taking in the changes. I could see it. The way she looked me up and down, like she was evaluating me, trying to find some crack in the armor she thought she could still get through. The guy who used to be hers, who used to want her back. But I wasn't that guy anymore. She tried to cover it with a casual smile, but I saw the hint of insecurity behind it. I'm glad to see you're doing okay. I didn't answer right away. I just stared at her, feeling that quiet pull in the air between us, the weight of everything that had passed, everything unsaid. I was aware of how much time had passed since I'd last let myself feel anything about her, since I'd let myself care about what she thought. I'm good, I said. Busy. She nodded, the smile still not quite right, not quite reaching her eyes. Yeah, I guess we've both got our own stuff now. She shifted her weight from one foot to the other, trying to find something else to latch onto. The awkwardness between us was palpable, but I wasn't going to soften it. I wasn't going to pretend. "So," she said, the words coming out in a rush, "how have you been, really?" I could see the hesitation in her face, the unspoken question hanging in the air. How's life after me? She was testing the waters, seeing if there was a crack where she could slip back in, but I wasn't interested. I'd already crossed that line. "I'm fine," I said, my voice neutral. "Doing well, actually." She gave a tight little smile, but it faltered quickly. She was waiting for me to ask her the same thing, maybe even for me to show a flicker of care, something that would make this feel like a reunion instead of a run-in. But I didn't give her that. I just gave her a simple nod. "Good to see you, Allison." Then, before she could say anything else, I turned and walked away. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. I could feel her standing there, still, as I moved down the aisle. I didn't need to see her face to know that she was watching me, maybe even hoping I'd stop, that I'd turn around and say something else. But I didn't. I just kept walking. It was late one night when the phone rang. I wasn't expecting it, wasn't looking for it, but I saw her name on the screen, Allison. I hesitated for a second, my thumb hovering over the screen, but I wasn't going to let it go to voicemail. Not this time. I answered it, but I didn't say anything right away. I just let the silence hang, letting her make the first move. "Jake?" Her voice came through shaky, like she wasn't sure I'd pick up, like she wasn't sure she even wanted to talk. But I could hear the tremor in it, the kind you can't fake. "Jake, it's me." I leaned back against the couch, phone pressed to my ear. I wasn't in a rush. I wasn't angry. I wasn't excited either. I was just here. "Yeah," I said after a beat. "I know." There was a long pause on the other end. I could hear her breathing, slow and uneven, like she was struggling to find the right words. I messed up," she said finally, her voice cracking. "I made a mistake. I thought I wanted freedom, but now I just feel lost. I can't stop thinking about what I gave up, what I left behind." Her words came out in a rush, like she was trying to get them all out before she lost her nerve. I didn't say anything. I wasn't here to console her or tell her everything would be okay. I wasn't interested in offering her any comfort. I just waited. "I should have never walked away, Jake," she added, her voice breaking a little more with each word. "I thought it was the right thing, but now I see it wasn't. I see it so clearly now. I was selfish. I thought I needed space, but I don't know what I was thinking." She was desperate. I could hear it in her voice, the way she was trying to explain herself like it would change anything, like it would change the fact that she left, that she made a choice, and I wasn't the one she chose. "You're right," I said, finally breaking the silence. "You made a mistake." She sighed, like she was relieved that I was acknowledging it, like that somehow gave her the door she was looking for. "Is there any chance we could, I don't know, start over? Could we fix this? I'm willing to do whatever it takes, Jake. Please!" Her words hung in the air, and for a moment I almost felt a flicker of something, maybe nostalgia, maybe anger. But I shut it down quickly. I didn't need her to explain. I didn't need her to beg. It was over. I let out a breath, calm, steady, unbothered. "You made your choice," I said, my voice clear. "And I'm not the kind of guy you get to choose twice." There was a beat of silence on the other end. I could hear her breathing, fast and uneven now, her words stuck somewhere between regret and disbelief. "Jake," she whispered, but I cut her off. "I'm done," I said, no emotion in my voice. "I'm not going back. I'm not going to pretend like I don't see through this. I'm moving forward. You should too." She was quiet for a moment, and I could hear her trying to process it, trying to figure out what to say next. But there was nothing left for her to say. I didn't need to hear any more apologies. I didn't need her to fix anything, because nothing was broken on my side. "I think we're done here," I added, my voice final. "Take care, Allison." Without waiting for a response, I ended the call, staring at the phone for a moment. There was no relief, no sense of victory, just peace. I felt nothing, not bitterness, not sadness, just quiet. The kind of peace you get when you finally let go of something that wasn't yours to carry anymore. I set the phone down on the table, leaned back, and let the stillness fill the room. This was it. This was the freedom I'd been looking for, and it felt damn good. Several weeks passed, and I kept moving forward. Work was going well, better than before, and I had a routine that felt solid. I wasn't looking back, wasn't second-guessing myself. The gym became a regular thing again, and hanging out with friends wasn't a once-in-a-while thing. It was a part of my life. I was putting time into the stuff that mattered, stuff that had been neglected for years. I was thriving. One afternoon, I saw a text pop up from Allison. Just her name and the message preview. Can we talk? I didn't open it. I didn't even think about it. I just left it unread, letting it sit there. The thought crossed my mind to delete it, but I didn't even bother. She wasn't my problem anymore. A few days later, I ran into her again. Of course, it had to be at another party, one of those things I usually would have avoided. But this time, it didn't feel like I was walking into her territory. I wasn't there to make her feel comfortable, and I sure as hell wasn't trying to find any reason to reconnect. She spotted me from across the room, and her expression changed the second she saw me. It was that same familiar look, nervous, almost frantic, like she was searching for any opening to get back into my life. The closer she got, the more desperate her smile looked. She tried to act casual, but her eyes gave her away. "Jake," she said, her voice shaking just enough for me to notice. "It's been a while, hasn't it?" I nodded, offering nothing more. "Yeah, a while." Her eyes were darting around, looking for something to latch onto, some kind of conversation that would make this feel normal again. But I wasn't going to give her that. "I've been thinking a lot about everything, you know," she continued, the words tumbling out too fast. "I've been trying to figure out where things went wrong." I gave her a small shrug, a nonchalant gesture that I knew would get under her skin. "Things went wrong when you walked away." Her smile faltered, and she looked down for a second, like she was working up the nerve to say something that might change everything. She opened her mouth to speak, but stopped herself. "I just wanted to see if there was a chance, if maybe—" She started, but I cut her off, knowing exactly where this was headed. "I'm not interested in going backwards, Allison," I said, my voice steady, final. "It's over." She blinked, the words catching in her throat, and I could see the shift in her desperation trying to keep up, but she couldn't. Not with me. I wasn't that guy anymore. I wasn't waiting for her to come back, and I sure as hell wasn't going to beg her to stay. "Okay," she said quietly, her voice small now, almost defeated. I gave her a last look, no anger, no sympathy. Just detachment. "Take care of yourself." I turned and walked away, not looking back. I didn't need to. I wasn't looking for closure, or even for her to understand. I was done, and walking away from her wasn't the hard part. It was the easiest thing I'd done in months. As I stepped out of the party, I realized how much I'd changed. I wasn't free because of what I lost, but because of what I'd gained, the space to be myself again, to rebuild. And as I walked away, I knew she'd never get that back, but it was too late for her now, and for the first time in a long time, I felt truly, completely free.